Episode 184 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Skip and Daniel from Happy Camper Radio. Today's podcast is brought to you by Creative Live. Start learning for free today with their amazing selection of on-air classes. With over 1,500 curated classes in photography and video, money and life, craft and maker, art and design, and music and audio, there's something for everyone. I've watched many of their on-air broadcasts for free, or buy a class and own the content for life. Go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/creativelive and start building creative skills from the world's top experts today. I believe achieving success in the outdoor biz is dependent upon embracing the outdoor lifestyle and learning from outdoor leaders that came before you. If you agree, then listen up for tips, advice, and hacks about growing or starting your career in the outdoor biz. My name is Rick Sayes. Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Skip, Daniel, and I talk about how they got into podcasting, the great advice they provide on their show, camp stories, and more. But before we get into the interview, my book Trails to the Top goes on sale next Tuesday on Amazon. Go to Amazon.com and search Rick Sayes or Trails to the Top and grab your copy. The Kindle version will be on sale for a limited time at 99 cents and the paperback for $9.99. Great stories, outdoor career advice, and more from guests on the Outdoor Biz Podcast. You'll be entertained and even learn a little something from these characters. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
All right, Rick, thank you. Appreciate having us on the program.
Yeah, good to have you guys on from Happy Camper Radio. This is exciting to talk to another podcaster / radio personalities.
Yes, us podcasters, we do have a tendency to rub elbows, don't we?
That's right. We have to, right? So let's start with your first exposure to the outdoors. How did you guys get excited about the outdoor lifestyle and camping and all that?
Well, I can tell you this, and I'm not going to answer for Daniel. I'll let him do that for himself. But my first experience with the outdoors was in the backyard with my dad, and we didn't have a tent. It was a really nice spring or summer evening, very clear skies, lots of stars in the sky. And we just laid there, not on sleeping bags, but we had blankets and our pillows. And we just laid there, and it was a great father-son experience. We just enjoyed the outdoors. We talked. We fell asleep. And I think I was about 12 years old at that time.
Cool.
But that was my very first exposure to the outdoors. And ever since that day, I've loved every minute of it.
It's great. Yeah. Daniel, how about you?
I like to say that I was camping before I was born because my parents, they used to take this big old tent down to this state park in Georgia called FDR State Park, and they would set up their tent and camp there. And there's a few pictures of my mom when she was pregnant with me. But then once I came around, you'd see pictures of me and my little crib and stuff over by the lake. And we would go there every spring, and I think I learned to ride my bike there. I would always be running off into the trail, into the back trails, into the woods. I would just like going into the woods and just, I don't know. I always felt like, oh, I could go down this path and maybe there's something, I don't know, like a pot of gold, or I don't know. I had a very vivid imagination, and I would ride my bike everywhere. I would go to playgrounds everywhere. There was this one time when we went to this state park. It was Hard Labor Creek, and we were camping there. I was probably about 5 or 6, and my sister was about 3 or 4. And so we had our pop-up because we graduated to a pop-up. And then like right down from it was our own little playground. It was like a train. It was like a locomotive climbing apparatus. And that was a lot of fun. So we did that all the time. And it was all about, okay, another thing about the outdoors is we'd always go to these different campgrounds, and my sister was so good at making friends with other kids. And I'm an extrovert. Me and my sister are extroverts, and she would always make friends with people, and I'd like follow behind and be like, hey, what's going on? And we'd always make friends with kids, and we'd go to the clubhouse.
You guys were free range kids before free range kids were a thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I grew up in like the late 80s, early 90s. I mean,
right.
That's the thing. I mean, I'm like that now because back then all my parents did was they just sat there and read their book. I'd be like, let's go. And
That's
I'd be
funny.
going to the pool. I'd be going, I'd just be running everywhere. I was nonstop, and I
That's
So,
awesome.
there you go.
So you guys didn't have outdoor careers though, right? You guys were, got into the outdoors as young kids, but your careers were totally different. Tell us about your
Oh
careers.
my heavens!
No.
Yeah.
I work in the outdoors. I am a mailman, so
okay.
my career is outdoors.
Gotcha.
It's just not fun outdoors.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
mine was in the outdoors too. I was a cop.
Okay.
So yeah, I got around too. I got around in the outdoors just like Daniel.
So you were outside
I
a lot,
was
but you didn't get to play
yeah.
with outdoor gear and all that stuff. Yeah, cool. Yeah. And
No,
what
no,
was
no.
what
I
was sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I was also in the Navy, so
Okay.
there's a little bit of that. Too.
Yeah, a lot of outdoor activity there. So what was the inspiration for Happy Camper Radio? How'd that come about?
Well, the thing about Happy Camper Radio came about when I decided I was going to have a podcast. Back in the years, long before I got into law enforcement, I actually owned a small market FM radio station in northwestern Pennsylvania that I built from the ground up,
Wow.
from construction all the way to the top of the tower. And I operated and ran that radio station for 3 years before I decided, what I'm doing right here, I'm not really making the money I really would like to make. The area that I set the station up in was a little on the depression side, let's call it, so to speak, because it wasn't really making the money that I really wanted it to make. Most of my signal was going out into the forest to the deer and the bears and the wolves and everything.
Oh, I'm sure they enjoyed it.
Well, they did too. Yeah. Okay. If they like rock and roll music, yeah, they were out there jamming to it. But I went ahead and I decided to get into law enforcement, and this was long before Daniel was even around. Like I said, there's a big age difference between the two of us, and podcasting wasn't even a blip on the radar at that particular time.
Right.
And neither was the internet, for that matter. There was no such thing as cell phones and pagers back then, just to give you an idea how far back we're going. But now, moving fast forward, after I retired from law enforcement and I didn't know what I was going to do next, I ended up getting involved in television news. And that's where I'm at right now, and very close to retirement. But, when podcasting came about and when I got to study and learn a little bit about that, I says, wow, I need to go ahead and get back into the next best thing to radio.
Yeah.
So I decided to get into podcasting, and Daniel came around just shortly after that. But one of the things, that's neat about podcasting, anybody can do it.
Right.
But you've got to have something to talk about, and it's got to be something that is very close to your heart. And the thing that came right to my mind was camping, because I could sit here and talk hours about it.
That's great.
I think all three could, for that matter.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. So how many years have you been doing it? Quite a few years.
Happy Camper Radio, I think we began in 2013.
Okay. Yeah. Good. That's great.
Yep. And if you're gonna do a show, you want to try to do it as often as you possibly can. We try to do it once a week, but like I said, with Daniel and I's schedule, sometimes that can be a little bit difficult. But anytime we do get behind the microphone and throw the switch, here we are. I mean, we've got plenty to talk about as far as the outdoor goes.
Yeah. And do you do any where you're out camping? Have you done any episodes while you're outside?
Oh, we did. Daniel,
cool.
Why don't you tell them about the most recent episode that not only folks can find in the podcast directory, but you can find it on YouTube as well.
Oh, cool.
Well, we went to this state park up the road from us, about 45 minutes. It's called Fort Yargo State Park. And, we camped out. Me and my wife, we went geocaching, and we left Skip to do his thing. He likes to stay around camp and cook and clean and, just piddle around. And actually, he was taking a bunch of shots of around the park while we were walking around.
Just like you wonder why your folks sat around the camp and what read books that they
pretty much like parents. Well, me and my wife were out gallivanting around trying to find geocaches. And so I think the last day we were there, we had actually one of our fans, and I was blown away. I was in the tent laying down because it was so hot, and we had no air conditioner, and I'm used to my pop-up air conditioner. I'm like, why did I get in the tent? And then this guy comes up to us, and I think we were about to get ready to do a show, And he comes up and he starts talking to Skip. I'm like, oh boy, what'd we do? I was thinking this was like some kind of park ranger. And it turns out that it was one of our fans. And he gave us some honey, own honey, little business, I guess he had. And it was amazing. So we had a lot of fun. We, it rained a little bit, and I know Skip hates that and everything, but it's a part of the outdoors. But we had a lot of fun. I got a bunch of geocaches, and it was a lot of fun.
That was the real highlight of our camping trip was before Daniel and I even packed our bags and went up to Fort Yago, we talked about it on the previous episode. And we said, we're going to be there if any of our local listeners happen to be in the area. Come look us up. And sure enough, this kind gentleman went up and he showed up and he goes, hey, you Skip. Yeah, I listen to your show all the time.
That's great.
Daniel White Ranger was there. Yeah, it turned out fantastic. And even though that we do the podcast thing, we're trying to get into videos now too. And we've got some awesome video equipment here that we're really bringing in. And hopefully in my retirement years, which I keep saying it's going to be next month and the month after that, but I keep pushing it off. But it's not too far down the road. We'll be doing more of those, both podcasting in the studio as well as out in the field.
Well, keep us in the loop. We'll link to your YouTube page too. That's cool. Yeah. Do you have any favorite places to camp? You must.
Well, my favorite place that I have enjoyed camping in while here in Georgia is way north in a small town called Hiawassee. And I talk about Hiawassee on the program quite a bit because back in my law enforcement days, when I first got into that business and didn't know too many people, I come to find out there was a group of guys that actually went camping once a year up in Hiawassee. And it was not actually right in the town of Hiawassee, but just about 5, 6, 7 miles to the east of that. And a little hideaway place back in the woods. It's in the National Forest. But these guys have been going up there for like 30 to 40 years.
Wow.
Every Veterans Day weekend. And I just started going with them and I was looking forward to it each and every year.
That's
so,
cool.
Yeah, that's always been a favorite place of mine to camp. Even though it's isolated, it's not a public campground, and you're back there by yourself with folks it's still part of being in the outdoors, and it's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Daniel, do you have a favorite spot?
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. But when I was a kid, my parents were members of this camping club. It's called Coast to Coast, and we went to this one place. It's in St. Augustine, Florida, and it was literally right across from the beach. And I could go swimming anytime I wanted inside the ocean. And I just remember that was like one of the best memories of my childhood. And like, we would be laying down sleeping and you could hear the ocean and it was just amazing.
Very cool.
So, I mean, if I had to pick one, which I just love experiencing new ones, but if I have to pick one, it would have been that one. Unfortunately, it's closed, but
that happens a lot.
Close second would probably be Panama City. My close second is Panama City, and it's right next to this water park. And so
you like the water? You like being close to water?
Yeah. It's kind of one of the reasons why I joined the Navy. I was like, all right,
okay.
I don't want to be on the ground. I want to be out in the ocean. I want to be, like you mentioned that, but like one of the greatest things, experiences I ever had when I was in the Navy is I would be down in the bowels of the aircraft carrier, and I would come up to the elevator area, the hangar bay area, and I would see like the French Riviera. It would just be there. And it was just amazing, and I just love going to different places, experiencing different things, and just trying different things, and just learning everything I can about the world.
Very cool. So you guys have been doing this podcast for quite a while. Do you have a favorite episode?
Can I
go ahead?
Episode number 10.
Oh, he knows it. Oh, that's great.
My favorite, and it was. It's still a running joke around here. What ended up happening? Daniel went away for the weekend. Him and his wife just had to get away, and they went somewhere in North Georgia. And when he came back, we had an episode already lined up, and I says, Daniel, I heard you went to a quilt show while you were there. What ended up happening? There is another party here in the house. She is very, very clinging to the kitchen, should I say? She's a baker. She's a cook. We call her Betty Crocker. She managed to get into Daniel's Facebook page because he was over here. His computer was down or something, and he left his Facebook page wide open.
Never do that.
And she got in there. And next thing you know, the whole world in Daniel's community, he was going to a quilt show.
I think to this day, I think that's like the number one commented thing on my Facebook page. The number one thing commented on my Facebook page is something I didn't even do. It's kind of annoying.
That's pretty funny. That's awesome.
I can always remember episode number 10. And for your listeners who want to go to happycamperradio.com, our podcast episode tab is right there at the very top. You can go back to 2013. Just look up episode number 10.
Cool.
And if you want to have a good laugh, just click on it.
I'll put a special.
I think my favorite.
I'll put a special link to that in the show notes.
Okay.
I think my favorite episode. I don't know if Skip knows the exact number, but I liked the episode when Gary, my friend who just hiked the Appalachian Trail back in 2012. He just got off the trail, and we were conversing with him while he was doing his hike, and he would call in from time to time. And so after his hike, about a month or two later, he came down here to see us, and him and his wife were on the show.
Oh, cool.
And that was a really special thing.
Yeah. That's back when we had a sofa in the studio, Dan.
Yeah.
It's now taken up by this monstrous spaceship, which Daniel calls the Booth of Justice.
I saw that. I'm gonna link to that in the show notes too. That's
sports booth here. It's in the studio.
Yeah,
and it's bigger than I expected it to be when I bought it. But it serves wonders for doing voiceovers and things like that.
It's very impressive. Yeah, I'll link to that in the show notes too. I was looking at that online. It's like, wow, you guys are professional. It's impressive.
First class.
So in addition.
That's another thing, that for anybody that wants to get into podcasting, I always say buy the best that you can afford.
Yeah.
Okay. But don't try to live like the Joneses, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell everybody that's good advice.
Get a decent dynamic microphone.
Yeah.
If you find them on eBay, if you want to get a used one, if you don't have the money to get it new, get a small mixer. It doesn't take a whole lot to get started. But for me, I had the broadcast in my blood, and I just knew that I had to have a broadcast studio.
Yeah.
And Daniel watched it grow. In fact, he was the one that came over one afternoon while he was on break for lunch, and he helped carry this new console desk that I bought. And they had to have a big monstrous truck come in to deliver it.
Wow.
And both were out of breath by the time we got it upstairs. I said, just help me get it up here. I'll get it assembled. And Happy Camper Radio actually started in the corner of a bedroom.
Well,
and now we have our studio.
Yeah, and like you say, I mean, it doesn't take much. I tell everybody, too, to don't just go whole hog. Either commit to doing 3 or 4 episodes to see if you like it, because you might not like it. So that's good advice, though. Yeah. Just go.
Well, like I said, we've been doing it all this time, and it would be nice to be able to get in here into the studio once every week. That's not always going to be possible, but we get the show out there as often as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So what other outdoor activities do you guys participate in? Anything other than just camping?
I'll tell you, for myself, the only outdoor activities that I do outside of camping is mow grass.
Okay.
I have plenty of outdoor to do, and I don't mind backyard camping. I've done that quite a bit, and you could have just fun camping in the backyard, and especially for folks who are on a low budget, and you just don't have the money to get away, and you want to go ahead and set the tent up. Just make a fun night out of it.
Yeah.
You've got your family there, invite the friends over. Daniel and I have done the backyard camping episode one time, and we set up in the backyard. And this is back when Daniel he swallowed his pride and he pitched a tent right next to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all right. I get it. I'm that way sometimes.
Even his cat participated.
Yeah.
I woke up
Nice.
in the middle of the night, is laying on the cot right next to me. Yeah.
That's good. So, do you have any suggestions or advice for folks that want to get into podcast or maybe the radio business?
Well, the radio business is going to be very tough to get into these days. I know they got low power TV and low power FM and stuff like that. I mean, it's been well over 30 years since I've been out of the radio business.
Got you.
But for folks that want to get into podcasting, like I say, start out small. Have something to talk about first before you even spend a dime on a microphone cable. Think about what you're going to talk about, and it's got to be something that's true and dear to your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you know you're going to talk about time and time again, something you can build on, something that you can build an audience for. All right. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but word will get around, and definitely use social media.
Yep.
Use social media to promote your podcast.
Yep.
Now, if you're going to get into podcast for the sole purpose of making money, I hate to disappoint you right off the bat. You're not going to be able to do that. There are literally hundreds of thousands of people out there doing podcasts today. Some people do make money from it.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people who started right about the time when podcasting was a brand new industry, and they're doing it to this very day. But for a lot of folks coming in there, I remember the gentleman, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I saw a lot of his episodes online where he actually took you through the stages of how to set up a podcast. And I remember one of the things that he says, be grateful for the audience that you have.
Yeah.
You know, your listeners are going to be, your pride and joy. If you want to do this for a hobby, you're going to have a lot of fun at it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to do it for the sole purpose of making a living, I don't think that's going to happen in today's day and age. And I think that podcasting was designed to make us rich.
Yeah, it takes a while, and I think you're right. The listeners are gold. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without my great listeners, as well as the book that I'm launching. So your listeners are really, why I think we all are into podcasting, to help them, give advice for them, give them resources that they can go use to, start podcasting or grow their careers or whatever it might be. Learn how to go camping, do camping better. I mean, there's all kinds of things. But yeah, it is all about the listeners. You're right.
It's been 6 years for Daniel and I now behind the microphone, and we're still building an audience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it says, as long as you're going to be doing it, and stick with the subject.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about camping, stick with camping. If you're going to talk about hiking, you're going to talk about auto repairs, don't drift around from one subject to another. Otherwise, you're going to lose your audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so most importantly, before you buy any gear whatsoever, make sure that you have something that you're going to talk about. And you don't have to do a whole lot of research on it, because like for Daniel and I, we've camped all of our lives. So, it's in our blood. We're going to be talking about it every time we flip the mic switch.
Yeah, I tell them, I do a little bit of podcast coaching, and I tell everybody that not only figure out what your topics are going to be, but kind of do a little work on who your ideal listener is, right? I mean, do a little profile on who that person is that you're speaking to, and then that'll make some of your decisions later about what it is you're going to podcast about. If you're still on topic, if you circle back around to your initial topic and your initial listener, that'll help you figure out, you know what, I don't want to go talk about that. That's not, my ideal listener is not going to be interested in that. Or it's like, yeah, that's right on target. So that's another bit of advice that I tell my folks. Yeah.
Your folks who are going to be, say, for example, individuals who go hiking on a regular basis, that they're hiking the AT, that's got that in their blood.
Yeah.
They're not going to be as loyal listeners to the Happy Camper radio show as they would, say, a podcast where somebody who has made a lifetime career out of hiking,
right?
They'll be listening to them. Happy Camper is more of a family-oriented podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're both the young and old campers who do go to public campgrounds or private campgrounds. They will enjoy this show.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll link to your show in the show notes, and for sure that episode 10. I like that sounds like a funny one. Let's shift gears a little bit. Do you guys have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity? Do you exercise, walk the dog, kick the dog?
I just got finished swimming.
All
We're
right,
trying to
good.
get into swimming.
Cool.
again, But I like to try to go play disc golf from time to time, and I'm in this kick now. I get into certain kicks. I bought a bunch of outdoor games. Like I bought this game the other day. It was called Can Jam, and it's like a frisbee game that you throw into a little thing. You can look it up. But all kinds of outdoor games, badminton, cornhole. There's a game called Cube, and me and my wife, like if it's the weekend and stuff, we have nothing else to do. We want to get outdoors. We go geocaching, like I said earlier, and that's a lot of fun. And we bring our little bag of swag and trade out, and it's a way to get out and experience different parts of the area we live in, and
That's
it's
a good
exercise too.
Yeah, that's
his other outdoor kick, he thinks his neighbor's rich for some reason.
Very rich.
Yeah.
Very.
We all jonesing for the neighbors, right? Do you guys have any favorite books or books you give as gifts?
No, I can't say that I'm not much of a reader,
Okay,
to be honest with you.
Yeah. Other podcasts?
It's not really, well, hold on, Skip. Let me answer. My favorite book. It's not. I mean, do you want a camping book or do you want a book in general?
Whatever's your favorite book, doesn't matter.
Let's see. My favorite book is, so far, it has to be. So there's this series called Magic 2.0, and this first book, which really started it all off, it's called Off to Be the Wizard. It's by Scott Meyer. The audio version is amazing, and I really love that book. And the series is still going. I'm on the 6th book right now. But as far as hiking and camping, I would have to say that it would be Where's the Next Shelter by Gary Sizer.
Okay, great.
That was a really good one. He makes it feel like you're in his head as he's hiking the AT.
Oh, cool.
So that was my favorite as far as camping and hiking is concerned.
Yeah, I'll put
Now
links
there
to
are
those
a
in the
couple
show
books
notes.
here. There's a couple books here that we do have in the studio, and a gentleman we've had on the program a couple times already, Darren Kirby. He has put together a book, The Best Tent Camping Guide from Novice to Expert. And he also has a couple other ones out, tinfoil recipes and pie iron recipes.
Yeah.
It's not a storytelling type of book, but I mean, this book's right here, like the Best Tent Camping Guide from Novice to Expert. For somebody who wants to get into camping for the very first time, this is the book to have, believe me.
Yeah, he was on the show last week.
Yeah, the recipe books. Wow. I'm telling you, if you like sitting around at camp like I do, if you love eating, if you love preparing food, get these books.
Yeah, those are
Most
good.
Definitely.
Yeah, he was on the show last week. We talked about his books and all his tent camping experience. Yeah, he's great. That was good. And how about a favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
Wow.
Go ahead if you want to go first.
That's my budget right there. I'll tell you what. You talk about getting something different. We've talked not too long ago about the camp stoves and how they've developed over the years. But I have actually gotten hooked on these butane stoves that go for about $20 a piece. And the butane canisters are right under $3 each. And it's a very small stove. If you're not familiar with them, you can look them up online. You can find them in places like Dick's Sporting Goods or Academy Sports. You can find them right there. But they are great. They're very lightweight. You can get about 3 or 4 good meals out of one canister. And those canisters are a little bit difficult at first for me to find, but now you can find them just about anywhere. You can find them at Walmart or, just about any department store or hardware store.
Yeah.
But you can carry them with you, and you don't necessarily need to be taking them on a camping trip. If you want to carry it, just say in the trunk of your vehicle for emergency purposes. Say if you get stranded somewhere and you got a package of ramen noodles you want to heat up. As long as you got a pot or something in and a little bit of water, you're good to go. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
so I've got to say for that's probably going to be one of my my favorite pieces of gear.
Cool. I like it. Good. Daniel?
Well, I would say, I mean, you can get these for over 100. You can get these for under 100, but I think I got these for around $100, and that was my Black Diamond trekking poles, and it is so amazing how much those help you when you're walking through the woods. I mean, it's a lifesaver every time you slip on a rock, and you've got that support there. And a lot of the times we used to we live very close to Stone Mountain, and we used to hike up the mountain a lot. And our hands always got swollen. I was like, oh, why is our hands always swollen? Because they'd be down on our side. But when you have the trekking poles, it really helps you not just with your footing, but it also helps the sweating or the swelling in your hands and stuff go away. So I mean that you can buy them for a lot more than 100, and you can buy them for under 100. So I would have to say trekking poles in general, they are a lifesaver.
Yeah, I love that. I don't go anywhere without them. I have bad knees. They just help a ton. Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah.
Exactly.
As we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to ask or say to our listeners?
Well, check out our podcast when you get an opportunity. Happy Camper Radio. You can find us online at happycamperradio.com. And like your show, we're in all the podcast directories.
Cool.
You can find us right there.
Cool.
And it's a great show to listen to. If you want to call into the show, you can easily do that. 404-537-2267. 404-537-CAMP.
Cool. I love
Easy
it.
one to remember.
Yeah, well, we'll link to that in the show notes too. That's awesome. Well, guys, it's been great catching up with you. I'll link to all the link to your show in all the show notes, and I look forward to running into you on the trail someday.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yep. All right, thank you, Rick.
If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Until next time, be sure to make time to get outside.